Hey, Hockey Nuts, Wayne here. I just want to introduce a new kind of digital whiteboard. Kind of getting away from the whiteboard. A couple of reasons. Number one, it's huge, it's in the way, and I kind of want to use it more as a backdrop more than actual working board. And just do kind of a backdrop to kind of hide the mess going on in my office. The other thing is I'm getting a lot of heat from some of the people that also watch another YouTuber that uses a whiteboard to talk hockey, and that's the hockey guy. A guy I respect, a guy that I watch his stuff too. So I'm kind of playing with a new way of doing things, and that's the so-called digital whiteboard. So I'm going to employ a writing tablet, and I created a nice little background, and we'll go from there. But the first one I want to do is looking at the games from last night. Today is Wednesday, the 7th of March, and I want to look at last night's games. I know it's a little late. We're already into March 7th games, but let's go ahead and take a look at those games. So with that in mind, let's switch over to the board. Okay, here we are, and let's get some stuff up on the board here. So these are the games that were taking place Tuesday, and then the games for Wednesday are down here. And first and foremost, let me go ahead and get the separation so you can see the different games. And then let's get the scores up there. So these are the final scores from that night's slate of action. And what we have is of course, the Bruins beat the Red Wings in overtime. Actually, let's go through these one by one, or game by game, and we'll go from there. Okay, so looking at Boston versus Detroit. Let's bring up the game notes here. Okay, so in net, Detroit used both of their goalies. Coro started the game and ended up getting beat quite a bit. Actually, Bruins scored before the first minute was over in that game. The Bruins were up 2-0. But that's not when they pulled him. They pulled him later on in the game. And Howard ended up finishing. But Coro got 12 saves. Howard got 19 saves in the loss. Detroit goals were scored by Martin Frk, Green, Mantha with 2, and Nielsen. Boston goals were scored by Marchand, who actually got a hat trick in that game. Torrey Krug, who got 2 himself, and he actually hit the post at one point in that game, almost getting that third goal. And then Jake DeBrusk got the third goal in that one. Hudobin was in net for Boston, thanks due to the Tuukka Rask injury, but Hudobin made 30 saves in net. And I watched the game, but I'm not sure exactly who was backing up Hudobin in that one. So I guess I should have looked that up before I did this video. Anyway, let's look at the next game. Montreal at New Jersey. The final score ends up being 6-4 Jersey. Lindgren in net for Montreal with 27 saves. Kincaid again in net with 29 saves for New Jersey. And goals for Montreal by Gallagher, Delarose, who had 2, and Froze, who had 1. And Zajac with 2, Boyle, Coleman, Maroon, and Nosen with a goal apiece in that game. I didn't see much of that game, but I know Corey Schneider has come back and played already, but they're kind of easing him back into the lineup, and why not? Kincaid has played fairly decently for New Jersey in relief, so sure, why not? All right, let's move on to the next game. We have Winnipeg versus the Rangers, and this one was all Winnipeg. And in fact, this one was all Patrick Laine, which my fantasy team is very happy about because I have him on my team. But Laine with the hat trick for Winnipeg, and Mason with 31 saves in net for the win. Lundqvist also 31 saves in net in the losing effort. And unfortunately, the Rangers came up with the goose egg on the scoreboard for goals in that one. And you know what? Winnipeg is a very, very good team. They're definitely going to be playoff bound. The Rangers are definitely not playoff bound. And the Rangers basically have been winning quite a bit lately, and they came back down to earth a little bit in this one. All right, next game. We have Vegas versus Columbus. And Columbus gets the win in this one. Vegas is kind of sputtering a little bit as of late. They're not the white hot Vegas team that we've seen all season. And quite frankly, every team in the NHL goes through a period at some point or another. It's a long season. Some point during the season, every team has to go through a bit of a down spell. And Vegas really hasn't had one of those as of yet. So perhaps this is that down spell for them. They haven't won a lot recently, but the games they have won, they're doing quite well. But in this case, Columbus just needed the points more than Vegas did, and they came out with the win. Korpisalo, 37 saves in the winning effort. Goals by Cole, Dubois, Panarin, and Werenski for Columbus. And Haula got the goal for Vegas, and Fleury with just 17 saves in net for the Vegas Golden Knights. So Vegas clearly outshot them, but it's all about how many goals you put up on the scoreboard. All right, next one. We have Dallas at Nashville. Another shutout. There were 3 shutouts in the Knights action last night, and this was one of them. Nashville with a 2-0 win over Dallas. Rinne with 26 saves in the winning effort. Lehtinen, 32 saves in the losing effort. And Nashville's goals from Bonino and Hartman. So a nice win for Nashville there. Unfortunately, Dallas... going into play against Nashville in Nashville is always a chore because Nashville's crowd is they're into it. The stuff that they were showing in last year's finals, that stuff is continued. It's actually quite fun to watch a Nashville game at home. But this one here, though, was scoreless until late in the third. And then Nashville scored a goal to take the lead. And then, of course, Dallas pulled their goalie. And at one point with the empty net, a Dallas defenseman came through. And I'm not sure exactly what he tripped on, but he just simply blew a tire, slipped and fell, lost the puck. It went right to a Nashville player, and they basically potted it right in the net for the empty net goal and the 2-0 win. So it's just one of those nights where Dallas just couldn't muster any kind of offense to speak of. So, all right, let's head to the next one. This was the most disappointing game of the night for me. As you may know, I do live in the Carolina market. I live probably a 30-minute drive from PNC Arena. And yes, I'm a Bruins fan, but at the same time, I want to see the Carolina Hurricanes do well because, it's for selfish reasons, really. I don't want the Canes to move, and they need to have a good team to prevent that from happening. And unfortunately, Carolina lost again, so the Hurricanes missing the playoffs is getting more and more likely each and every day. And this was a major setback for them. They were never in this game. They've had quite a few of these games lately. Ward started the game in net for Carolina. Darling had to finish it because they ended up pulling Ward. And this has been the number one issue for the Carolina Hurricanes in my mind this season is the goaltending. Darling's been struggling all year. And then at times, Ward has had his nights of struggle. And it's just, Carolina's got to find a solution for the goaltending issues. And I've attended a couple of Charlotte Checkers games. And particularly the most recent one that we went to a couple of weeks ago, Nedeljkovic down there in Charlotte has been playing quite well for them. And I'm not entirely certain why Carolina hasn't given that kid a shot. Perhaps, obviously you got two with Ward and Darling in Carolina, you've got those guys under contract, so you can't exactly send either one of them down to make room for Nedeljkovic. But at some point, they should really give him a really good shot. He's had a cup of coffee here and there, one game here and there, but that's really not enough to see what he can do at the NHL level. So I certainly would like to see what he can do at the NHL level because every time I've seen him play down in Charlotte, he does quite well, quite frankly. So so I think it's time that Carolina make some changes at goaltending and give that kid a shot at the very least, just to see if he can do it. Sometimes you don't know what you got until you give him a shot, and then go out and do a transaction or of some kind to get a goaltender in here. That's another way of doing things. So, okay. So in this game, though, Carolina obviously, again, was nowhere near ready to play at the drop of the puck. They ended up falling behind 5-0 at one point in this game, and they ended up losing the game 6-2. So it's kind of too little too late in terms of goals, the 2 goals that they scored in the third. But anyway, Ward's got the start, 9 saves. Darling, 16 saves. Goals for Carolina from DiGiuseppe and Ryan. And the Minnesota goals from Stahl, who had 2. Cullen, Niederreiter, Parise, and Winnick. So that is pretty much all there is to say in that game. And, of course, Minnesota gets two points that they desperately need in order to advance in the playoffs. All right, let's take a look at the next game. It's Colorado at Chicago. And this was an overtime game, the second game of the night. The Boston Bruins game was the other one. And speaking of which, Marchand got the overtime winner in that one. I do like to point out the overtime winners. Chicago wins this game 2-1 in overtime. And this was a game that Colorado needed to have. Colorado is chasing right now in the playoff picture. They're a couple of points back. Actually, the standings are right behind me. Yeah, they're 6 points back from the third spot in the Central Division. So, and 3 points back of a wild card. So, anyway, Colorado needed this win. They did get 1 point out of it, but they needed to get 2. They can't afford to be giving up points to teams that are behind them in the standings, and they did just that tonight. Chicago with the win. Berube, 33 saves in the winning effort for Chicago. Goals from Gustafsson and Taves. Taves gets the overtime winner. Varlamov, 25 saves in the losing effort. And McKinnon is the only goal scorer for Colorado in this game. All right, let's head out to the late game. And didn't actually stay up for this one, but here it is. Ducks come out with a 4-0 win against the Washington Capitals, the third and final shutout of the night. Gibson in net for the Ducks gets the shutout with 36 saves. And goals from Henrique, Lindholm, Raquel, and Ritchie for Anaheim. Washington Capitals, Holtby got the start in net for them, and then they ended up pulling him for Grubauer. Holtby with 6 saves, Grubauer at 8. So Ducks really didn't get a whole lot of shots on net, but they ended up getting the win anyway. And then, of course, nobody could put the puck in the net for the Capitals. So just kind of a throwaway game for Washington. Hopefully not something that's a trend of things to come, because they're sitting right now in a playoff spot, but they're not totally secure in that spot. Right now, the Metro Conference is a logjam, and there are some teams that could definitely come back to bite them or come back and overtake them if they suddenly go on a losing streak. So Washington's got to pull things together in that one. All right, final game of the night, and it's actually one of the earlier games of the night, but I put it last because it was my so-called game of the night, where I thought would be the most entertaining game of the night, and it pretty much was. It was right up there, probably one of the best 2 or 3 games of the night. But Florida at Tampa Bay, so battle of the Florida teams. This one was kind of a wild game. It went back and forth. Tampa Bay ends up winning the game in overtime. They get the 5-4 overtime win. Vasilevsky went the distance in net for Tampa Bay. Luongo for Florida. Luongo with 28 saves. Vasilevsky with 45. So Florida was basically throwing everything they had at Tampa Bay, and they just couldn't beat Vasilevsky enough anyway. They beat him 4 times, but not enough to get the win. Nick Bjugstad with Florida got the hat trick, and Vincent Trocheck got the other goal for Florida. and the Tampa Bay goals from Gord, Killorn, Miller, and Point. And the highlight of the night was definitely the Point goal. It was the overtime goal, and he put on a sweet dangle move on, I can't even remember the defenseman's name, but he basically just deked a defenseman right out of his shorts, and then put the shot over Luongo's shoulder for the overtime winner. So that's all the games as of Tuesday, March 6th. So let's head on to take a quick look at the games that were going on Wednesday night. And first and foremost, I got to post the times up here. So the Calgary at Buffalo game at 7:30 on Wednesday night. The Pittsburgh-Philadelphia game is the NBC Sports rivalry, the NBC Sports Network rivalry game of the week. That's the game they were showing. And that Pittsburgh-Philadelphia game started at 8. And then the late game on Wednesday night, Arizona at Vancouver. And just some notes on these games here. Calgary coming in 32, 25, and 10 at 74 points. Calgary's 3 points out of a playoff spot. Buffalo well out of the playoff picture, 21, 34, and 11. And they're 20 points out of a playoff spot at 53 points. Obviously, the game of the night is the Pittsburgh-Philadelphia game, so the interstate rivalry there, where, quite frankly, those teams just don't like each other. 38, 25, and 4 is the record for Pittsburgh at the moment, 80 points. They're 9 points clear of a playoff spot right now. And Philadelphia is 34, 21, and 11 at 79 points, and they are 8 points clear of a playoff spot at the moment. So that is primed to be a very good game on Wednesday night, probably the best game of the three. So it's a very light schedule. And then the final game of the night is kind of a snoozer in my mind. Arizona at 20, 34, and 11, 51 points. They're 26 points out of a playoff spot. Vancouver, not much better, 25, 32, and 9, 59 points, and 18 points out of a playoff spot. So kind of a pride game there in those three. So that is all I had for news and notes for Wednesday, March 7. So reviewing the Tuesday games and previewing the Wednesday games all in one shot. So if you like this video, go ahead and click like. If you learned something, go ahead and click like as well. And if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and click the subscribe button. I'm always encouraged by folks who do subscribe to our channel. And as always, until the next video, we'll catch you then.